Hey guys, so in this video, I'm just gonna do a quick unboxing of a new collection that I just got this morning, the Olympus OM2n, okay? This is not my first OM2n. I've had Olympus OM1, OM1n, OM2, OM2n, and OM4 previously. And I sold whatever I had before, probably last year, and got into the collection of Minoltas. So I got Minolta's XD11, I got the XD5, okay, with a automatic drive unit, which is pretty cool. And then I also got the Minolta X700. Those are the current cameras in my collection. And I know I highly praised Olympus before, but the reason I sold them is because I just tested the lens of the Minolta compared to the Olympus Zuikos. The Minolta MDs, it's just slightly sharper. Now, there are downsides, of course, which is those cameras are going to be a lot bigger and a lot heavier than any of the OM cameras out there. And so for me personally, I traded the compactness for slightly better lens image quality. Okay, so that's the reason I went with Minolta, and I've had all my cameras for a while. And this morning or yesterday, I was browsing on the marketplace and I found this one. Seller doesn't know much about it, but the cool thing is I went there in the morning and he basically left it at the door when he went out with his kids to play some soccer. I checked it, I inspected everything, and I made a reasonable offer, and he accepted it. So I sent him the money, and I took the camera home after inspecting it in his front door. Okay, that's where he left it for me. And I was really excited because this camera is so far the best, the most well-preserved OM2n copy I have. Not even a single scratch, okay? Not even a single scratch. Now, the reason I'm assuming is probably because the previous owner always had a case. Now, this is probably the seller's family's item. Just by smelling it, I can smell this is the old person's camera because it seems like it's been sitting in an old person's home for a while. But regardless, it's so well preserved. It's been sitting in its case the entire life, and the condition is exceptional. Now, when I first got it, the battery juice was leaking. There was no battery. The shutter got stuck, and the seller probably doesn't know how to unstuck the shutter. So when you view through the viewfinder on this camera, if the battery is dead, you won't be able to see anything. Okay, so he might think that it's broken. That's probably why he let it go for a rather reasonable offer that I made. And he also told me that it comes with a few extra lenses. Now, this one is a 35mm f2.8, a very popular lens back then. And this is a popular zoom lens, a telephoto zoom lens, 75 to 150 f4. And it's f4 from 75 to 150. So it's a constant aperture, compact zoom lens. You know, in theory, those are, dream come true. It's extremely compact. If you don't have money to afford a Leica rangefinder, this is probably the next compact thing that you can get to get, good image quality at a fraction of the cost of a Leica. Now, I've also owned the Leica M3. No, I've owned the Leica M2, and then I've owned the Leica M4-2. I had those cameras for a little bit, but without auto exposure, the operation of those cameras is just not enjoyable. I miss a lot of moments that I'm trying to capture. And that's why now in my collection, I only have auto exposure aperture priority film cameras. And now granted, the X700 is auto exposure for both aperture priority and shutter priority. I mean, aperture priority and a full automatic, which is pretty cool. But again, I'm an aperture priority guy. So as long as it does auto exposure, within a reasonable, that exposes the pictures fairly okay, I'm okay. And that's the reason I bought another OM2n. I want to give it another try. And again, let's just take everything out, and then we'll take a quick look at why this camera, when it came out, is such a popular camera back then. And of course, highly regarded camera as well. Okay, so I think this camera is introduced at 1975. Okay, so it's been a while. It's older than me, for sure. And a lot of those cameras came out in the 70s. The XD11 probably late 70s, early 80s. X700 is 80s camera, and when the plastic starts to become mainstream, unfortunately, X700 is the least favorite in my whole collection here, just because it's plastic and it's very loud when the shutter is operated compared to all the metal body cameras. Okay, so here's 3 things that we want to take a look at. And just looking at the lens, it's just so compact. Let's compare the f1.4 on the Zuiko with the 50mm f1.4 with the 50mm f1.4 on the Minolta. Okay, see the size difference, and then you know why some people swear by Olympus. Look at that. It's quite a lot larger on the lens barrel. Okay, same aperture. Okay, but the Olympus is just so much more compact, and yeah, I still have high regards for the pure industrial engineering and design of the OM Zuiko lenses. It's just so beautiful. Like, if you ask me that which camera is prettier, the Olympus or the XD11. By the way, they are kind of competitors in back then. They all are kind of top of the line cameras, aperture priority, automatic exposure. Now the XD11 also has a shutter priority, which again is an advantage if you shoot sports or if you shoot other kind of action stuff. This comes in handy. Back then, for the press photographers, shutter priority is probably more useful. This one only have aperture and a full manual mode. So this is auto, this is aperture priority, and if you switch it off, it turns off, conserves battery. If you flip it over to the bottom, you can use the shutter speed ring over here. Now the shutter speed ring is also what's interesting because there's no shutter speed dial on top. Where the Minolta, you have the shutter dial directly on top. The shutter on the OM2 is actually right next to the lens barrel at the bottom, which is really cool. The aperture is at the front, shutter is at over here. In theory, this actually operates pretty quickly. I can have a set aperture usually, and then if I'm shooting, if I'm shooting a manual scene, then the shutter can be just quickly adjusted with just literally one hand. The other hand, you could just leave it here for exposure, which is really nice. And by the way, the shutter sound, it's nice and quiet. Let's see if I have battery in the XD5. Maybe I have, maybe I don't. Nope, I don't have any battery. Let me try so this is how the XD5 and XD11 sounds like, okay? And this is what the OM2n sounds. Probably needs a faster shutter speed. Okay, different sounds, but both of them are very quiet and very pleasant sounding. So again, talking about why the OM is so popular. Again, not because of the lens quality. Okay, so there are definitely sacrifices to be made if you're making a lens this small, and that is the reason the MD from Minolta, the lens is larger. However, the chromatic aberration, the control of the color fringing, and the edge sharpness are all better. When I mounted both of those lenses using adapter to my Sony a7 IV and compared side by side, that's when I made the decision. I like image quality, so I kept the MD lenses and the Minolta system, and I sold all my OM systems. Now I got this back again. I can comment image quality wise, it's not going to be the best, okay? But if you want the most compact camera, there is very limited amount of choices. Look at that, side by side. It's just literally, it's like this is the skinny guy, this is the chubby guy. Not sure if I can show you here. You can see the size difference on my camera right here. I can probably switch the angles for you guys. Yeah, it's significant. If you look at the front, it also immediately it looks smaller. It is smaller as well, and in terms of the weight, it's comparable actually. And again, both of those cameras are all metal. Okay, but what I'm saying is you won't go wrong with either of those. If your budget is limited, choose what's important for you. If you have, budget for just one camera system, you like compactness, you like small, go with the Olympus, the OM. If you care about your image quality just a little bit more, go with the Minolta system. Again, the metering is actually pretty accurate in the Minolta since the XD series, and it's carried over to the X700. Okay, and any of those cameras is gonna literally put smiles on your face. Really depends on what you need and your budget. Now this one, again, as I said, shutter is right here, so your on the top is a very convenient exposure compensation dial. Okay, very convenient. You can literally turn it to +2, -2 in 1/3 increment. You can also set the ISO right here. You lift it up and then you turn. You set the ISO. You can set it to maybe always shooting 400s. And once you set the aperture, you have to adjust the exposure compensation. So this is like a connected system right here. Geniusly designed, actually. Again, this is battery operated, so it won't work. The only thing it's going to be working is the bulb mode, which without any battery, it's going to work. So if I switch to bulb mode, I can press and hold it and release it, and then it exposes. But if you put anything in the camera, okay. So if it doesn't have any battery, it will default to a off mode with the shutter fixed. When you turn it off, the shutter is fixed at one shutter speed. I believe the default shutter speed, probably 60s of a second. And if you put it in auto, then it starts to measure the aperture and give you a more correct exposure. Now, what's cool about the OM2, okay, I'm going to show you guys, is this is one of the first camera that had a through-the-lens metering system, advanced through-the-lens metering system. And you can also see that it doesn't have a hot shoe, but it comes with this little Hotshoe Adapter. So all you have to do, okay, put this adapter in here, and you will instantly have a very nice hot shoe mounted on top of the camera. Okay. Now, one common problem with all those is, I don't know if you guys can see, there's a crack on those hot shoes. There's a design flaw in every single one of those. It's either the glue inside self-destructs from the inside of the hot shoe, or it splits from this area on the bridge. And it's very common. So you'll be lucky if you get a hot shoe that's not damaged. Let me see if I have another one. I have another hot shoe from my previous camera purchase, and so this one is actually for the OM1 and OM2. You can see on the top there is only one big bulb because it doesn't support TTL. Okay, so the new one, the OM2n, is the first camera in Olympus that supports through-the-lens metering, and it's rather advanced as well because the metering cell that they are using is a advanced cell, and I'm gonna try to show you guys by using the bulb mode and exposes the metering component. So I'm gonna use my phone so you guys can see. So if I hit this, it kind of hard to see. Okay, so anyway, maybe I can put an illustration on the screen, but it's got a matrix metering grid in there. And every time you pop this hood up, it reflects the light to that grid, in turn gives you a very accurate through-the-lens metering and exposure, as opposed to some other metering methods that's being used in other cameras. This one in theory, it gives very consistent metering. And in my personal test, yes, it is accurate, but it's also primitive. As with any other camera meterings back then, it's just the 18% central gray that everybody's trying to meter to. One camera might have slight advantage, but all the film cameras that does auto exposure is going to be similar one way or the other. Okay, so there's that. This is the first camera that supports through lens metering on the Olympus side. And let's try the 35mm lens. This is like really compact, 35 2.8. Now granted, this is not the fastest lens. I have a 35 1.4 on my Minolta. I'll show you guys. This is the size difference between the 2.8 and 1.4. Okay, different manufacturers, obviously. Look at the difference. Now again, compactness is what you want. You will sacrifice image quality. This one has a smaller aperture, so but it gives you the most compact travel lens combination on 35mm possible. All right, it's so compact, so small, so elegant. I absolutely love this camera just for its looks. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. The lens that came with this camera, you really have to check, because those cameras for the most times has been sitting in grandma's basement, lots of moisture probably, and some of them are probably already deteriorated. Now, when I got this camera, there were moldy spots inside the lens case. Okay, you see the moldy spots, and the lens starts to develop a little bit of the mold. This lens is bad. There was mold growth inside that, unfortunately, with my resources, I can play around, but I'm not sure if I'm able to entirely fix and remove that mold in this zoom lens. But even for this zoom lens, you see how compact it is. Okay, this is a 150 f4. All right, really compact. Besides that, you can use this lens for portrait, because it also goes 75 f4. Okay, in bright daylights with a slow film, this is probably a great combination back then. And again, very well balanced in the hands. Okay, so yeah, it's a beautifully designed camera system that, despite the fact that Minolta has a better image quality, okay, and more plasticky, futuristic looking camera body, it just, the looks of the Minolta just doesn't compare to the OM2. And that's, I think, pretty much it. That's all the things I got. And the next step I'm going to do is actually, this is a cloth shutter. And you can see all the films that deteriorated due to moisture and also the material that they used. I have a video on how to replace the film, so if you're interested, check that video out. In fact, check my playlist for film cameras. I think you're going to find a lot of interesting things in there from my previous videos and collections that I've had, and also lens performance tests and stuff. So again, this is just a unboxing, a showcase, and maybe an impromptu comparison of the OM2n and the Minolta XD11. And the reason why I chose one over the other, it's simply because of the image quality. But if you really fancy the compactness, you definitely ought to look for a Minolta OM2n system, because they are fun to use and very compact, very compact. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, comments, feel free to ask me in the comment section down below. And again, I hope you found this impromptu comparison video rather helpful. If you did, please do hit the like button or subscribe. And if you have any questions about those cameras that I have, also feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to answer. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.